Can you give a man feelings-based feedback in real time? You might think you can, but I do find this is one of the hardest skills that a client ever has to learn, especially in a society where we're all so in our heads. We have to work, we have to think, we have to plan, we often have to use numbers. Being in your body and giving accurate, up-to-the-moment feedback with a man can be very difficult to do. Let me give you an example. I had a client, she went on a date and came to me about 2-3 days after the date saying she was very disappointed, she was very angry with the date, she was feeling really jaded by it. And I said, why? And she said, well, it was supposed to be a makeup date. This is like the 4th or 5th date. The guy had been behaving really well, but this particular date was supposed to be a makeup date because he botched the organization of a previous date. So the guy planned to take her out to this nice place, but then plans changed at the end and they ended up at basically a diner that she didn't feel very comfortable or safe at. However, when she arrived, she was also very hungry. So she didn't mention this feeling of discomfort or tenseness or anger, disappointment that the date wasn't at a beautiful restaurant. She was so hungry at that point that she just sort of shrugged her shoulders and said, look, I don't love this place. I feel I'm a bit overdressed, but let's go with it. At the end of the night, she still wanted to be a good date, so she thanked him. She said she appreciated him taking her out. She said she really enjoyed herself. But now, do you see how 2 or 3 days later, there's this anger, even resentment lingering over, wait a minute, I actually didn't enjoy that date and I wasn't honest about it at the time. What should have happened in this situation is when she arrived at this date, if she'd had that feedback loop initially, where she'd been really in her body and checking in what she was feeling, she would have said something like, look, I'm going to be honest here, I'm a little bit torn on what to do. I'm feeling so hungry on the one hand, and I really just want to eat, to be honest, and get it done with. On the other hand, I am feeling really disappointed at this date location. I feel tense because I'm overdressed and I sense a lot of people are looking at me. I'm nervous being in this casual of a location. And to be honest, I'm also feeling a little disappointed that this was going to be a really exciting, like a makeup date. I was so excited to eat the dinner and have the yummy food served to me. And I guess this isn't that. So I'm really torn here. On the one hand, I'm super bloody hungry. It's 2 hours past my dinner. On the other hand, I don't feel very comfortable or happy at this location. What do you think is the best option here? Now, if she'd been able to say something like that at the time, the guy would have been made aware that, okay, based on how to please this woman, I've messed up. I said I was going to take her to one style of location. This is not that style of location. I made her feel X negative emotion. Now I decide how I want to correct that. But instead what happened is she kind of kept her mouth shut. She said, oh, well, I'm hungry. I'll just eat here. She gave him appreciation at the end of the night, which was well intended. You should appreciate a man for the things you want him to do. But you can see how now 2, 3, 4 days later, when she goes to give that feedback on how she felt at the time, it's going to land much more awkwardly for that guy who thought he did a good job. Worse, most men have at some stage disappointed their mums, disappointed the woman in their life. So men often have a kind of trigger or fear around this. You've probably dealt with this in the dating pool when you give feedback sometimes, is if something seems really good and it's like the guy's done a great job and then he realizes he hasn't, it can be a big deflating feeling for him. Now, his trauma around his mother is something he needs to work through on his own. That being said, you don't want to do things on your end that activate it when you don't need to. And in this particular case, the client staying quiet when she arrived, kind of listening to just the hunger, as you can see how that would happen, but listening to just the hunger as opposed to her feelings in the situation, then led the guy to believe he was doing a better job than what he was. Then she appreciated him because she wanted to be a good date. And then 3 days later, he's going to get the news that actually you kind of sucked that night. So that's going to be a peak and then a drop down that didn't need to happen if the conflict and the vulnerability had happened right at the time. The point of all this is you can see how important it is to be connected in to what you're feeling from moment to moment. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that they would have left the diner. The hunger might have still won out, but can you see how if they'd had the conversation, they maybe could have joked around about it. She could have said something like, all right, you're bloody lucky I'm hungry, but you're still making this up to me next time. And they could have had a playful interaction about it. It honestly could have been an inside joke for the date, for the rest of their relationship about this date. Do you remember that time you took me to a diner for a makeup dinner? You remember that time? You remember that time? But if anger and resentment builds up, you can't really be playful about it anymore. You've got to be more vulnerable. You've got to go to your feelings. And now she has to basically say, hey, I want to take responsibility for this. You know, I've been really working with my dating coach on better connecting to my feelings, but I kind of dropped the ball at the diner the other night. On the one hand, I was really excited to eat because I was bloody hungry, and I think I sort of followed that instinct. On the other hand, I was a little bit dishonest with you and not fully upfront about how tense I felt in that environment. I should have said this at the time. Honestly, I was worried and scared and maybe didn't want to disappoint you. And so I didn't bring it up at the time, and I realized I should have because I've been thinking about it since. The truth is I was feeling very tense and uncomfortable at the diner. I should have made that clear at the time. And maybe moving forward, I can certainly work on that, but maybe we could also do one of those nice dates that we initially planned that I was so excited for. Hopefully you can see how that heart-to-mouth connection, that kind of fast feedback, real-time feelings-based feedback loop would have been very helpful to the guy. It may have hurt him a little more in the short run, but it would have prevented any confusion that he's now going to experience when she brings up this conversation again. So overall, connect to your body, spend a few minutes each day checking in, how do I feel? Make sure it's real feelings, not thoughts. That's an easy trap to fall into. How do I feel? I feel blank. How do I feel? I feel blank. How do I feel? I feel blank. Check in because it's like a muscle. You build it, you use those neurons more, and you'll have a much faster and clearer feedback loop that you'll be able to use for the men in your life, and that will make the men feel safe. Because one last point on this, men do not fear for their physical safety. Men with women fear for their emotional safety. Okay, you as a woman with a man will fear for your physical safety. You need to know if a man is physically safe. Men don't care about that. We're not scared for our physical safety when we are with you. However, we are scared for our emotional safety. Women and our mothers in the past, if they were to do this to us, women have intuition. Women know where our wounds are. And a woman, not only does hurting a woman just hurt a man, but if a woman wants to hurt a man, she can hurt a man. She may never lay a finger on him, but emotionally, women know how to hurt men. You'll know how to do that if you really want to. So we want to make it safe for the guy by you being as clear as you can with your own feelings-based feedback loop. That way he has clarity. Okay, I know when I did right. I know when I did wrong. It's predictable. This feels safe. And I know the actions to take to do the right thing. You don't want the guy feeling like he did the right thing and then realizing later he was wrong over and over again, because that cycle is going to make him throw his hands up in the air, never know which path to walk down, and ultimately go and choose another woman who's more clear with her feedback loop than you are. If you want help with this, it can be really hard to do, and for most of my clients, they need a lot of daily training on this. When I say a lot, it's more habitual. It's not hours a day or anything, but a few minutes every day of habitual training on this, just to get it right. But when you do, as I say, it opens you up. It gives you so much heart, and good open-hearted men can really feel you. So if you want help doing this, book a one-on-one call. I've got my no man, no fee guarantee, so you can take advantage of that. Hit the subscribe button with the little bell to get the notifications, and leave a comment below. Have you been in this situation? Have you struggled sometimes to have that feelings-based feedback loop work quickly for you? Maybe you've had to go back and correct it later on. I'd love to hear from you if that's been the case. Thanks again for watching. Give the video a like, and I'll see you in the next one very soon.